really getting at there is the dominance of seeing, 5 Ducatis in the top 5. I think he is spot on. Bagnaia and Marquez are going to, Mark Marquez are going to be the two thorns in the side of everybody else next year. But I think in overall wise, I could see what he's saying. You've got Jorge Martin going to Aprilia. You've got Bastianini going to KTM. I think that in the bigger picture of things, you're not going to see 5 Ducatis at the front, because I don't think that you've got 5 riders within Ducati. If you had to grade, if you look at the 6 Ducati riders right this second for next year, how would you rate them? In the sense of in what pecking order would you go? Would you go like Bagnaia, then Mark Marquez?
Of all 6 of those guys, right?
6 of them, yeah. So you got 2 Marquezes on Ducatis.
Right. So obviously, right now, okay, we don't know how Mark would be on the tour.
Right. We don't know. Yeah.
So I'm gonna go Pecco first, then I'm gonna go Mark. But they're very, very close because.
Yeah, for sure.
I do think Mark has lost a step just because of how he keeps crashing the bike and stuff, but he's surprised.
They say so.
So the only thing that concerns me is, can they make another to the 2025 in terms of the jump they made from the 22 to the 23, the 23 to the 24? Right. I'm not convinced that there's still that much more to go. I know that there's more arrows and more crap coming out and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
That would be a factor. And the other factor, too, is obviously you're not losing Gigi D'Alia, right? So the question is, how much is he relying on 8 people's data to give him what he needs to continuously talk to his engineering team and develop that bike? Or is 6 going to be enough? Or is that an irrelevant number? Feedback from Bastianini going to be this. That's kind of where I sit. So that's a very interesting topic and a very interesting quote from Paul, because he's right in one sense and then he's not right in another sense.
Yeah. So I think that from a whole perspective, I just think that you're going to see a lot more brands in that top 5, 6, 7 than you do now. So where Ducati's just
which I think it's always a good thing.
And that's why I'm going to dominate guys. Oh boy. Well, cool. Well, what do we do a podcast next week? Next Tuesday?
Yeah, it's fine. We'll do next Tuesday. By the way, we got to send a shout out to the guys who won the championship. I mean, to Chase Sexton, congratulations on the Pro Motocross Championship. At the end of the day, man, the guy finished all the races. He did a good job. 504 points total, 462 for Hunter. Aaron Plessinger had a good end of the year run as well, 403. Unfortunately for the start of the show, he was out half the season. He rode great.
I watched I mean, it's kind of a weird thing, you kind of feel like Chase's championship is kind of like Colb's Formula 40 championships a little bit.
That's messed up. You need to take that back. We apologize as an organization to Chase Sexton for that comment that just came out of Jason Bridgeport's mouth.
It's not quite that bad anyways. Yeah. No, he rode amazing, but
other people showed up to Pro Motocross.
Hey, you can only race who's there on the line with you, right?
I mean, you're 100% right.
So Chase did what he needed to do. He was the second that Jet Lawrence goes out, he's expected to win the championship.
Yeah.
And Hunter's performance went down. As soon as Jet was out, Hunter's performance went down.
But dude, 13 wins for Chase, right? And
totally great.
Since Red Bud.
He does back it. Doesn't make it. I'm not saying the guy's the nicest kid in the world or anything, and he might be.
Dude, how did Roxon finish though?
He didn't do shit. He didn't do anything.
Kenny, 9th place.
Not like. I mean, look, he did that.
But Kenny was on 250. I thought it was great.
Look, I love it, man. That guy's enjoying it. He is loving his life.
Yeah.
The guy's still competitive. He's had such a long career, and he's still competitive. He's doing good stuff, and it's great. It's great. I record all the.
You almost just choked on it right there, Kyle.
What did I do?
You almost said I T-voted, and then you backed out of it. I can hear it.
Oh yeah, probably did, because that's what I call it. And anyways,
why don't you just call it your VHS recorder?
You know who else? I stuck the videotape in there, and I had to set the timer. Brett Metcalf is still racing. You probably have forgotten that name, but he's like he's close to 40. he's racing in Australia because he's Australian. And it was like I was watching some stuff that I watched last night. I'm like, what? Yeah, it was him. Guess what I did Saturday night?
Sat at home with a nice warm cup of wine and watched
Hot chocolate.
a nice warm cup of hot chocolate and watched.
You're really close.
Do those things we won't bother you, and it gives the Taliban pretty much free rein. So what they're able to do is they can overrun army bases, they can overrun smaller towns. The Taliban try and test the balance of the Doha Agreement. Within a couple of months, they attacked Ashgabat, which is the provincial capital in Helmand, which is where the British were operating. Then the Americans do bomb them. Then the Taliban go, okay, we can basically now know where we stand. We can attack anything except for capitals, or the provincial capital. And so, by basically the Americans saying we won't use air power against you, they are effectively withdrawing support for the Afghan army and police. Because the Afghan army and police are trying to hold Taliban at bay. They're operating from bases all over the country. And frequently the Taliban will try and overrun a base. And when that happens, the one thing that holds the Taliban at bay is American air power that turns up and bombs them back. And what happens instead after Doha, so this is sort of from mid-2020 onwards, is the Afghan army or police will be on the ground. They'll be facing the prospect of the Taliban overrunning them. They'll pull in their air power. American planes will fly overhead but not drop any bombs.
Okay, so a show of force.
Just kind of see what's happening.
Right, oh right, okay, so this isn't even about it. No, it isn't Taliban, it's checking what's going on.
Checking what's going on. Because of course the Taliban know they're not going to follow it.
Right.
So it's not really a show of force. And what it does is it causes Afghan security force morale to collapse because they're seeing that the West has stopped supporting them. And the Taliban know it and they know it.
Right, I see. And is it the case in those final weeks, as that withdrawal takes place, that there is a limited air power capacity for the Afghan forces? They have helicopters, for example, and some drone systems. But the US also removes all technical support. So there's no engineers or kind of flight crews, technicians to keep these things running. And so they can't use it with their own kind of smaller air power capacity to hold the Taliban at that.
Yeah, so I mean, there are some parts of the Afghan security forces that are very capable and have built up capacity. So the Afghan Commando Corps, basically, which is about 8% of their security forces, they are very capable, and they are basically the emergency force that flies around to try and hold the Taliban at bay. And they're air mobile, very capable. They are supported by a quite large Western contractor base who do the servicing of the airframes, who provide support to electronic countermeasures and so forth. So at the time of Doha in 2020, there are 8,500 American troops in Afghanistan. By the time Biden comes into office in January 2021, we're down to 2,500 troops. That's nothing, right? They're just like a small force. But their presence enables thousands of Western civilian contractors to be in Afghanistan. And they're the people who are servicing the airframes, the electronic weapons and so forth. When the American forces go all together, all of these Western contractors come out. And so all of a sudden, the high-end capacity the Afghan security forces have stopped working because there's no one there to service them.
And then you have that tipping point where the Taliban are buoyed, they're confident, and they know they can get victory, and so they make that charge on Kabul. But like you said, we focus too much on the present. This is a history podcast after all. And I guess Afghanistan into, was it Belgium within 3 years, or Bangladesh within 30 or something? I mean, it was a slow downward spiral in terms of the war itself. Was there at any point during that entire issue that we're talking about, and you've been heavily involved in this during the entirety of the conflict, that the war was winnable?
Yeah, look, it's
an easy question for you, Theo.
Thanks, James. And I should perhaps put my cards on the table for listeners. The book I wrote about this, about the British campaign, is entitled Unwinnable.
Yeah.
So you probably get a sense of where I'm coming from. But you're absolutely right to look at this initial early period. So, obviously, a month or two ago, that great podcast that we did previously about Tony Blair and Iraq.
Yes, so James Strong.
Yes, absolutely. And definitely I would recommend that to listeners because there are themes across the two. Because in that, of course, yourself and James talking about the conviction that's driving Blair around Iraq. and there's that great discussion around Blair can see that there isn't a legal case for war in Iraq, but he's strong conviction that it's the right thing to do. And there's something similar here. So essentially, Tony Blair is the man that's responsible for nation building in Afghanistan. He's the driving force behind it. So we see the International Security Assistance Force in Afghanistan, called ISAF. That originally was a force that went in December 2001 into Kabul just to secure Kabul. Its job was just to secure the government in Kabul. It's a very contained mission.
Okay.
That then becomes the mission to bring nation building to the whole of Afghanistan in a matter of years.
Is that because they think Kabul has been a success there? Is this trying to hold up, is it Hamid Karzai at this point in time, and to kind of make sure that he can push his power out further and increase the legitimacy of the government?
Partly that. So initially the force goes into Kabul because the concern was the Northern Alliance would sweep in, and this is a Tajik-Uzbek alliance, would sweep into Kabul and we'd see atrocities. They knew against Taliban, mostly Pashtun Taliban regime that had been in power. So there was a concern about sending in a peacekeeping force to stop atrocities and protect the new government of Hamid Karzai. But just think about where's Tony Blair's head at in late 2001, early 2002. What we have in 1998 in the United Kingdom is the Strategic Defence Review, the SDR. And coming after that is a view that the United Kingdom should be a force for good in the world. So this is what leads to Kosovo in 1999. This leads to the doctrine of the international community. This leads to this view that Britain can use military force for humanitarian and other noble purposes in the world. And there's also a second theme in the SDR. So everyone focuses on that, but there's a second theme in the SDR, which is the world is a global village, basically. And it's much better that we go to crises than have crises come to us.
you can brush these people, discover how law enforcement and prosecutors took on the mafia, and together brought them down.
These bosses on the commission had no idea what was coming their way from the federal government.
From Wolf Entertainment, this is Law and Order criminal justice system. The first 2 episodes drop on August 22nd. Plus, did you know that you can listen to the episodes as they come out completely ad-free? Don't miss out. Subscribe to the iHeart True Crime Plus channel today. Available exclusively on Apple Podcasts.
Your floor's looking old. The solution? 50 Floor, the ultimate flooring experience. Schedule a free in-home consultation and they'll bring hundreds of samples to your home. They have the highest quality hardwood, carpet, laminate, and luxury vinyl with the best warranties in the industry and a best price match guarantee. Make an appointment today. Mention promo code 50FREE and get 50% off your
cases. It may even be higher or match. Remember, 2020 is the highest level of voter participation that we've had in decades. So actually, quite a lot of this is actually going to come down to turning out your own side in the traditional coalition. If you're Harris, that's a good thing. If you're Trump, it's also a good thing. So it really puts you in a fighting chance on both sides of that. I mean, if I were Trump, this is why, with the podcast thing, it's easy to cringe and all that, but it's one of those where, is it going to be is it going to be the main reason you win? Absolutely not. But in a game of inches, basically everything matters. And that's why, RFK is really what brought me back to totally Trump 50-50, because yes, he's still going to be on the ballot, but if he's going to be stumping out there on the campaign trail for Trump and saying with Tulsi, like, listen, 1%, that's the difference. That's literally the margin in half of these states.
See, I actually don't think that it was a smart strategy leaning into the Tulsi Gabbard RFK Jr. strategy.
Well, I'll the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, the podcasting is interesting. We'll see. A lot of the podcasting going on, the people that are listening to them are Trump 48. And North Carolina is the one where Trump has a 1-point lead. And part of what this really grabbed a lot of attention fodder is that these numbers are almost exactly the 2020 Biden-Trump actual election numbers. So a lot of these numbers coming out of these polls, these were taken post-CNC and also just after the RFK dropout. So they should, in theory, although sometimes it takes time for news to look down, people really wrap their heads around changing dynamics, etc. But they should reflect both a potential post-DNC bounce and a potential impact of RFK dropping out and endorsing Trump.
Yeah, I mean, that is really interesting battleground polling, and you can take it 2 different ways. You can say, wow, that's accurate, it's just like 2020, or you can point to the fact that it's so ambiguous and within the margin of error, it effectively just says what we're always saying on the show, it's a coin flip.
So I said top dead center. I don't know whether you can see it. There's a T. This is a T right there. There's a T mark right there, and I align it with this notch right here to set it at top dead center. And yeah, today is hot. It's freaking heat advisory. So there's also another notch. If you look it in there, you can see that notch right there is lined up with this notch right here. That means it's in top dead center. So now, yeah, so we get these 2 nuts out, pull the head off, and hopefully we can get to the we can take the cylinder, swap the cylinder out.
If I put the polls, the only reason that I'm, so reluctant to be like, it looks like she's in the lead and she's, has the edge in terms of winning is just because it's Donald Trump and who knows what's going to happen. But to be honest with you, we may be overcomplicating this because when you look at all those factors lined up, when you test, all the different presidential characteristics that people want to see in a leader, she wins on almost all of them. The one where he usually gets her is strong leader. But on all of the other ones, she Swanson. So this is someone who people like more, they like her policies more, she's more useful, she's captured that, like, we want change spirit, even as she is in some ways an emblem of the status quo. She's captured that, like, change spirit, and so looking at those voter registration numbers, it gave me more of a sense that those fundamentals actually do reflect reality.
You could be right. I mean, the counter would be, the immigration situation is crazy. We're going to talk about the border invasion with Trump. That's going to be massive change. The other thing is we live in a way more divided country than ever before, where a lot of those fundamentals don't actually matter all that much sometimes for partisan people whenever they go to vote. What's doing the economy, depending on who the president is in power. The economy situation.
Rising. Like the economy. It'd be like, he still vastly outperforms Joe Biden in the economy. And we were sort of like, whatever. Because the polls were so clear at that. I mean, Biden winning by 9 points, 10 points, whatever. COVID was a catastrophe. We're like, it's over for you, Canada. I'm sorry. But actually, they were right. I mean, they still lost. But the economic numbers were one of the things that kept him in the game. So when I see, and actually we can, what is this, A9, the last element in this block, I throw this up on the screen. When I see, and this isn't the only poll that reflects this, when I see her pulling close or on that question of who would be better on getting prices down, she pulled a little bit ahead. When I see that, I feel like that is maybe as consequential a poll number as I have seen. Because that was the one thing that they were like, no, but people care about the economy, it's always the number one issue, and they still like Trump on the economy. But she has managed to neutralize his advantage on what has always been his strongest issue, I think is quite remarkable. And, with regard to immigration, no doubt that's her weakest issue. They know that's her weakest issue. I think they're handling it very poorly. We'll talk more about that in later blocks. However, I just don't see evidence that this is the big issue for swing voters. I think abortion is a much larger, more consequential issue in terms of driving enthusiasm and in terms of swing voters. Especially given the fact that the immigration, the border numbers are down at this point. We don't have, there was a peak of concern previously when there were all these buses going to blue cities, and there was a real, concern and frenzy about that, and understandably so. I think that has peaked in, again, the most hawkish immigration voters are already voting for Donald Trump. So, yes, it's her weakest issue. Yes, it's a problem for her. I just don't see it as being as consequential as Republicans hope it will be.
It's like I said, if it's an abortion election, Democrats will win. There's just no question about it.
And I think it's obviously there's the reality of housing has never been more uncertain, right? All the things that we think of as the bedrock of a stable middle class life have become more and more and more and more and more expensive.
This guy looks
Over decades.
kind of
So yes, we have this very important inflation conversation about what the grocery store, what you're paying at. You can't physically start eating things every single day and impact your budget. And not a prayer that either one of these candidates have any interest in really fixing it. Kamala Harris wants to extend the Obamacare subsidies that were part of the COVID era package. And, Trump last time around tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act. They're trying to say this time maybe he won't do that. We don't really freaking know. But there's no plan to actually fix the situation. I think that's pretty clear on both regards. And as I said, over decades, healthcare has just gone wildly. When you think about college education, what could be more associated with the neoliberal era of the achievement-oriented good life is you work hard, go to college, get that white-collar job, you're able to, achieve that middle class or upper middle class, even prosperity. College education, so unaffordable, so expensive. And then maybe the most egregious rub at this point, and it's obviously more than a rub, is housing costs. Rent is so expensive. To try to become a homeowner, which is really the bedrock of that, I've got my nest egg, I'm going to be able to hand something down to my kids, I'm going to be able to pay for the time. It's just become so impossible to be able to put your foot on that ladder of home ownership. So who can blame? I mean, they're right? They are correct. that it is very possible now to work hard, play by the rules, go to college, and then what? Then you're saddled with a mountain of debt, and your dreams of home ownership are only getting further and further and further away as the housing prices go up year after year after year. So there is a, you know, we're and then you couple on top of that reality, just this, you know, the vibes that we're in a declining empire and our best days are behind us.
Yeah, so
And that's where how you end up with a chart like this. Like, to touch on the political point that you were making, this is an undersold chart. Everyone talks about, obviously,
Tyson's, Purdue, and all these others actually have to pay workers a much higher wage. And if you combine it with an industrial policy, which, again, I support, many Republicans do not, there are a lot of different ways to come out of this. At the same time, on the mass deportation policy, even people like, by the way, I haven't seen the but the issue, as I know, is most people understand that emotionally and all that, it's probably not going to happen in any way. Just for, look, you Trump buckled on child separation, they buckled on the vast majority of the policy that they put in place. It's more
the price is going up on. What do you think about that? And then the other piece, just to reiterate here, is yes, the chips tariff and the EV tariffs, like, that makes sense. These are critical industries that are growth industries for the future. If you put a tariff on everything, a lot of what the U.S. does in terms of manufacturing isn't just creating the raw goods like the steel. And by the way, steel tariffs also make sense because we should have a domestic steel industry, and that is important to do, right? But a lot of the manufacturing here is the higher end. We're creating the finished product. You put a tariff on everything across the board, that means all of those inputs, the cost of every, or maybe it just means that those automakers or whoever are making those finished goods move to another country where they can get those inputs cheaper, and then, you know, where it makes sense for them to sell it back into our market rather than making it here. So even if I agree that I do think that the CHIPS Act and these tariffs, I do think.
Yeah, so I'm still messing with this thing. I don't know what part this is. It's like part 200, part 300. I got my Ziploc bag right here. Here's my piston with the rings installed, and I think I installed the rings correctly. You got the scraper ring right there, and another ring, and I think that's correct way. Now I've been fighting trying to put these little clips. I don't know whether they are visible, at least on one end of the piston, so I could so I can put this this bracket or pin, piston pin. So, but this thing, these little clips, they are a bitch. They make them smaller so they can, when they go in there, there's a ridge. I don't know whether it's visible. There's a ridge in there where they go into, and so you gotta squeeze them. So that's why the Ziploc bag is there for, because if I try to do it out in the open, these things will shoot everywhere, and then you'll be losing them. So I squeezed this one, and one of them I squeezed a little bit and kind of dented it. But then if you squeeze it, and then one side kind of sticks out a little bit. So you're still fighting to get it into that ridge. So that's what happened last time. I got sick and tired of trying to fight with it. That's an old piston. I don't have to worry about, I mean, it goes like this. So you can see there's an intake, that's an intake. And so it goes like that. But they look similar anyway, but you have to put it just in the correct, putting it facing up on the, when you're putting it in. But anyway, that's the next step. That's what so that's the old piston. And I followed all the, I used that as my guide for putting the piston rings, and also did a little bit of research online as far as piston rings are concerned. But as far as I think I did put them correctly. I think the only difference with these piston rings is that one is black and one is silver. And I looked at the older pistons, and I could see where the black one was in the middle and the silver one was on the top. So anyway, enough yakking. Let's put these little brackets in there and see if it works.
Of drug houses, and confirmed what the Attorney General had said, that elaborate drug networks lay behind all the small drug busts that have been happening. So Ned goes and tells his bosses.
There's this huge deal out there, and it involves shrimp boats and barges and airplanes, and so I told my bosses about it, and they kind of said, right, Tim, what are you smoking?
Around the same time, Ned says he arrested another biker and tried to borrow it. Ned didn't tell Kathy about this whole episode with the masked man and the dead body. Oddly enough, he seemed to take the whole episode in stride. So, in a way, if you're 100% certain it was Toby that killed him, it was just a technicality that you weren't there to witness it.
I'm not a witness. I'm not in charge of collecting evidence. FBI doesn't investigate homicides. It wasn't my job to investigate a homicide. Just don't kill somebody in front of me.
That's it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Ned says that he did call the police.
And so when Detroit police came and told him the same story, and they didn't really give a shit. It was this shithead biker.
Ned now had his line in the sand. The trick was keeping Toby on this side of it.
But you don't make progress unless you're dealing with sociopathic, homicidal, crazy people. That's who are in the inner circle of.
And set off a cascade of events.
So anyway,
The discovery
listening
of
to a
gigantic
podcast
drug
right now.
warehouse.
Let me reduce the volume. That's been podcasts have been my go-to. I don't even listen to music anymore. I just listen to podcasts. So I was able to put one side on. So now the trick is I put one side on. Now I go on the what's it called? So I'm just gonna I put one side in. That's one side is pointing. So now I'm gonna go to the what's that thing that attaches to the piston. Anyway, that, and then I'm gonna run my pin. That's my pin right there. And then we're gonna hook this thing up, and I gotta make sure that the intake is facing up. All right, so I'm gonna switch my camera or set up my camera in a different place, and we're gonna do this because this thing, this project has taken me too long. Freaking, it's hard getting motivated. Oh my goodness me, man! I admire those guys online who are doing this thing, who are doing the grind, and man, you just gotta be motivated. All right, enough yapping. Let's get this done. So this is gonna go like this. So the intake, that's the top. I think it sits here. So the pin is gonna go in here. This pin goes in here. Goes in here like that. Hope you can see, and that's what happens. So
filter for the features you care about, access the latest deals, and add your top cards to a comparison table to make smarter decisions. All powered by the Nerds' expert reviews of over 400 credit cards. Head over to
so I put some lube on the pin
and the smarter credit cards, savings accounts, mortgage rates,
and so
NerdWallet, finance smart. NerdWallet
my clip is on this side.
1617539.
Have you boosted your business with Lenovo Pro yet? Become a Lenovo Pro member for free today and unlock access to Lenovo's exclusive business support, technology, expert advisors, and essential products and services designed just for you. Visit Lenovo.com/Lenovo Pro to sign up for free. That's Lenovo.com/Lenovo Pro. Unlock new AI experiences with Lenovo's ThinkPad X1 Carbon.
So you see, so that's how it goes like that. So let's see why it won't get in the way. Okay, so I need to stick a pin on this other side. So I put a pin on one side, and I need to stick another one on this side. and that's gonna be tricky.
All powered by the nerds' expert reviews of over 400 credit cards. Head over to nerdwallet.com/learn more to find smarter credit cards, savings accounts, mortgage rates, and more. NerdWallet. Finance this wallet prepared. NMLS 161715.
And so I adjusted the camera. The reason why, these are the pins I got with the kit. With the Naraku, I came with these pins. These pins, squeezing them is nearly impossible. Just the design on the pin is nearly impossible to squeeze it, to try to get it in the wrist pin, to get it to work in there. So what I'm gonna do, I know there are some experts out there who I'm gonna say I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm gonna use the old wrist, the old ones.
Nearly 1980s, an FBI agent made Ned tickets.
As long as I don't damage them.
That a drug ring was smuggling massive amounts of pot into America. And he thought the local biker gangs were involved in some way.
Okay, so that's the one right there. That's the one from the. That's the old one from the old Piston, and I think it works better. So this works better. I mean, this works way better than this other one. That's the difference. This one is nearly impossible to squeeze, but this one is easily to squeeze. So let's see what we can do.
Huge deal out there, and it involves shrimp boats, barges, airplanes. I told my bosses about it, and they kind of said, Ray Tim's what he's smoking.
Ned raided this prop storage facility somewhere in Detroit, the El Dorado of stash houses. Over at the FBI, Ned's bosses had their doubts, but Ned stayed on the trail of intel, hanging out with his informants.
Whenever I walked into a house, or one of their houses, or hotel, or where they were, I always had it in my head, okay, what if this happens, what if this happens, and I would go through a checklist of what I would do, I always had a gun, obviously, and you're always looking, half the time I turned around, and those guys had guns, they're not supposed to.
Ned's main informant was still Toby Henderson, the violent, erratic biker/country western singer.
Toby was a hand grenade with a pin on. It was just a matter of time till he self-destructed or just died in hail of bullets or something. You just couldn't control him. He was just crazy.
He was difficult to manage, yes, but he was also giving Ned just enough, crumbs. He'd connect him with other bikers. He'd help him set up drug busts. Enough so that Ned could tell his bosses, look, I'm making progress. Like, at one point, Toby introduces him to another criminal, and together the three of them set up a sting out in California. Their plan was to get meth from some dealers way out in the streets.
Big field and these mountains up each side, and there's some hillbilly there at the gate, and he meets us and gets us through this gate, and it's just a 2-track sagebrush, cactus, and this high mountain desert. And we get near the barn, and out comes this freaking 500-pound pig. I mean, a big pig. And I said, what the fuck is it? Oh, that's the guard hog. I said, well, he smells people if they're, in the mountains are trying to surveil us or whatever it is. And that's true. A pig has one of the best noses in the world.
What really surprised Ned is what these hillbillies are feeding their prized guard pig.
They'd soak a onion, sweet onion, in that and throw it to the pig. The pig loved it. I mean, he wanted a fucking onion. I didn't really trust him because he's really fucking big and he's got tusks and shit.
And this was Ned's life now, sneaking past a drugged up pig.
Slide open the barn door and it's all hay. Pull out a bale in the middle and you can crawl through the tunnel, through the hay bales, and you come into a big room. And there's 30 stations set up for when they cook.
Ned said it was the biggest meth lab he'd ever seen. He handed off the intel, and a few weeks later, the authorities busted the place. And it also clarified something for Ned. Yeah, he was a full-time undercover FBI agent, trying to figure out if the rumors he'd been hearing were true. But he also had another, maybe equally important job title now: babysitter.
We're driving someplace, and all of a sudden Toby's in the back seat and pulls out a gun. Well, he could have just easily popped one in the back of my head, but I was so pissed at him that pulled over, took the gun away from him, and threw it over the cliff. He knew he had his tail between his legs. He knew he got spanked.
I'm Jake Halpern, and this is Deep Cover. Episode 2, What Will the Neighbors Think? Ned kept pushing Toby for intel, and sometimes, apparently, Toby would just lose it on Ned, saying that he was scared their cover would be blown. The word might get out among Detroit's biker gangs that Toby was an informant and they were working together. And Ned's warned
It looks like it went in. That is simpler than... That is a miracle. I'm very surprised. I thought it was going to be a bitch.
No one will even find bodies. Just shoot us, stick us on that ass or some shit. You have any idea how fucking dangerous this shit is? Ned nodded. Toby grabbed the bottom arm, leaned in close enough he could smell the ether, the cigarettes, and the BO. Who you, bros? You fucking better. Me and you out there dangling, right over the goddamn edge.
The dialogue may sound a bit stilted, but Ned insists the essence is accurate, and that, in a way, the distrust was mutual. Ned was keenly aware of how dangerous, how precarious their relationship would become.
So the pin went in, and I'm surprised actually how quick. I'm surprised how easy it went in. I thought it was gonna be more difficult.
If you don't trust that guy, you got a problem, because
And I think
my neck is at risk and his neck is at risk, and both of us are at risk. So I better trust him and he better trust me for the stuff we were
so.
doing.
Looks like it's good.
Despite the risks, Ned was increasingly comfortable in his new habitat. Not just that, he kind of liked it. Liked being Ed Thomas. Liked riding his Harley, staying out late in the bars, gathering intel.
I must have, because I was doing it. There's a lot of adrenaline to it. You're out there on the edge, hanging on the edge.
Yep. So it's India. So now we mess with our gaskets.
No one at the office was exactly telling Ned to go to his length, but he felt that he needed to be on duty all the time to do his job right.
We did Brazilian other drug deals, so we always had something going on.
What does this do to your home life?
It's crazy. You live it 24/7. You're always waiting for the next call, whether they wreck a car.
Yeah. So I put a whole bunch of all this just to block some of these entrances, because you don't want stuff falling in there. Just precaution.
Delinquents that are adult killers.
Back home,
And of course, before I did everything else, I put the thing on TDC.
Ed Thomas now needed
We have 3
restroom, and I think the other guest in there.
So the piston is in top dead center.
Yeah, they're going to put it.
He didn't seem to have that problem. He seemed comfortable with the pressure, deception, or maybe it was more than that.
I think Ned always was what one of his supervisors described Ned as an edge worker. Ned was always right at the edge of going off to the criminal side.
And then one day, he did the unthinkable. He brought the criminals home with him to his leafy upscale suburban house. Just shows up with Toby, one of the sidekicks, and they all just sauntered up the driveway.
Well, they looked just like motorcycle guys. The hair, the